June 10, 1990, dawned like any other day at Birmingham Airport in England. Passengers bustled through the terminal, their minds filled with the promise of travel. Among them were the 81 souls aboard British Airways Flight 5390, an early morning flight to Malaga, Spain. The passengers, a mix of holidaymakers and business travelers, settled into their seats. They eagerly awaited the warmth of the Spanish sun. At 6:20 a.m., the BAC 111 jet lifted off the runway, its nose pointed towards the clear blue sky. Captain Tim Lancaster, a seasoned pilot with over 11,000 flight hours, commanded the flight. Alongside him sat First Officer Alistair Aitchison, ready to assist in the routine flight. The first few minutes of the flight passed without incident. Stewardesses began their cabin service, offering refreshments to the passengers. At an altitude of 17,300 feet, disaster struck with the sudden, deafening roar of escaping air. The left windscreen of the cockpit shattered violently outwards, ripping from its frame and transforming the controlled environment of the cockpit into a maelstrom of icy wind and chaos. The explosive decompression that followed was swift and merciless. Unsecured objects were sucked out of the aircraft like toys. Papers, food trays, and even a suitcase disappeared into the swirling clouds below. Captain Lancaster, sitting directly in the path of the escaping air, was almost completely pulled out of his seat. Only his desperate grip on the control column and his legs flailing wildly above the cockpit floor prevented him from being sucked out of the aircraft. His body, buffeted by 500 mph winds, slammed repeatedly against the cockpit roof. His clothing ripped, his face battered, and his body subjected to extreme cold and lack of oxygen. First Officer Aitchison, witnessing this horrifying scene unfold before him, reacted instinctively. He desperately grabbed Captain Lancaster's legs, attempting to pull him back into the cockpit. However, the force of the wind was overwhelming. It was like trying to hold on to a leaf in a hurricane. The noise of the wind was deafening, making communication impossible. Outside the cockpit, the world was a blur of white and blue. Inside, it was a scene of unimaginable terror. Captain Lancaster, his face contorted in pain and his body succumbing to the unforgiving elements, was slipping away. His grip on the control column loosened, his fingers, numb with cold, threatened to let go. His vision blurred, his consciousness fading in and out. Yet, even in his rapidly deteriorating state, a single thought pulsed through his mind: to hold on. Aitchison, his own body aching from the strain, refused to let go. He clung to Lancaster with every ounce of strength he could muster. His arms screamed in protest, his muscles trembled with fatigue, but he dared not relent. He knew that letting go meant certain death for Lancaster, and likely for everyone else on board. He was their lifeline, their only hope. The roar of the wind seemed to mock their struggle, the biting cold a constant reminder of the peril they faced. Lancaster's body, now a mere puppet to the forces of nature, slammed against the fuselage with sickening thuds. His eyes, wide with fear and the initial shock, began to glaze over. In the passenger cabin, panic reigned. The deafening roar, the sudden drop in pressure, and the sight of debris flying past the windows were unlike anything they had ever experienced. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, a grim reminder that something was terribly wrong. Passengers scrambled to secure their masks, their hearts pounding in their chests. Amidst the chaos, the flight attendants sprung into action. Their training kicked in, their voices a beacon of calm amidst the terror. They moved through the aisle, assisting passengers with their oxygen masks, their reassuring words doing little to quell the fear that gripped the cabin. They knew that something catastrophic had happened in the cockpit, but they were determined to maintain order to keep the passengers calm. In the cockpit, First Officer Aitchison continued his desperate struggle to hold on to Captain Lancaster. His initial shock gave way to a steely resolve. He couldn't save the captain alone, he needed help. He yelled for Senior Cabin Attendant Nigel Ogden, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. Terror in the skies as passengers faced their fears. The minutes that followed stretched into an eternity for the passengers of Flight 5390. The initial shock gave way to a chilling realization: their plane was in serious trouble. The oxygen masks, while providing some comfort, served as a constant reminder of the precariousness of their situation. The lack of information from the cockpit only amplified their fear. Whispers turned into hushed conversations, punctuated by gasps of terror as the plane bucked and shuddered under the strain of the decompression. Some passengers prayed, seeking solace in their faith. Others clung desperately to loved ones, drawing strength from their embrace. Children cried, their innocent eyes reflecting the terror that filled the cabin. John, a young businessman on his first trip abroad, stared out the window, his mind racing. A miraculous landing as skill and courage prevailed. With the cockpit crew and Ogden battling to restrain Captain Lancaster, First Officer Acheson managed to regain control of the aircraft. He began a gradual descent, hoping to reach an altitude with breathable air. His hands, numb with cold, struggled with the controls. The noise in the cockpit was deafening, making communication almost impossible. Back in the cabin, the flight attendants continued their vital work. They calmed passengers, offering reassurance and support. They knew their role was crucial in maintaining order and preventing panic from spreading. Their calm demeanor, their unwavering professionalism, provided a glimmer of hope in the face of despair. At 8:55 a.m., after a terrifying 22 minutes, Flight 5390 touched down on the runway at Southampton Airport. The landing, though rough, was a testament to Acheson's skill and composure under unimaginable pressure. As the plane taxied to a halt, cheers erupted from the passengers, their relief palpable. Aftermath of the miracle picking up the pieces. The news of Flight 5390's near disaster spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed of the miracle in the sky, hailing the crew's heroism and the passengers' resilience. Captain Lancaster, despite suffering severe frostbite, a fractured arm, and numerous other injuries, made a remarkable recovery. He returned to flying 15 months later, his passion for the sky undimmed by the harrowing experience. First Officer Acheson, the unsung hero of Flight 5390, was lauded for his bravery and composure under pressure. He continued to fly for British Airways, his career marked by the extraordinary events of that fateful day. The investigation, uncovering the truth. In the aftermath of the incident, investigators from the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, AAIB, launched a thorough investigation to determine the cause of the windshield failure. Their goal was to prevent such a terrifying event from happening again. The investigation focused on the maintenance records of the aircraft, specifically the replacement of the windscreen prior to the flight. The investigation revealed a series of errors that led to the near-fatal incident. Crucially, the windscreen had been fitted with incorrect bolts. These bolts were slightly too small in diameter. Although the maintenance engineer had followed the correct procedure for fitting the bolts, the size difference meant they were unable to hold the windscreen securely in place. This seemingly small discrepancy, a difference of just 0.026 inches, had catastrophic consequences. Lessons learned: Flight 5390's impact on aviation safety. The harrowing experience of British Airways. Flight 5390 served as a wake-up call for the aviation industry. The near disaster highlighted the potentially catastrophic consequences of even minor errors in aircraft maintenance. It underscored the importance of rigorous safety protocols, clear communication, and a culture of accountability within airlines. In response to the incident, the Civil Aviation Authority, CIA, implemented a series of recommendations made by the AAIB. These included stricter regulations for windscreen fitting, improved training for maintenance engineers, and enhanced communication procedures between maintenance crews and flight crews. The incident also led to the development of new safety features in aircraft design. A legacy of resilience, honoring the heroes of Flight 5390. The story of British Airways, Flight 5390, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the importance of teamwork, and the unwavering dedication of those who work to ensure our safety in the skies. It is a story of courage in the face of unimaginable odds, of quick thinking and decisive action that averted tragedy. The crew of Flight 5390, through their heroic actions, redefined the meaning of going above and beyond the call of duty. Their story continues to inspire, reminding us that even in the darkest of moments, human courage can shine through.